Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another Journaling on a Budget video. Today we are going to make some border stamps and some faux border punches. So I've noticed in a lot of the journals people are using their border punches to punch along the edge of a page. They're not super cheap and I have some. I don't use them very often, so they're not really something that you necessarily want to make one of your first purchases when you're just starting out, because they're just a border punch. So, they're used for very specific things. And so, but we can do the same thing on our own without buying a border punch. That's what we're going to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is start out with fun foam. I did glue 2 pieces of fun foam together just because it makes it thicker and it makes it easier to work with. And then what I'm going to do is, because it is going to be a border stamp and a border punch, I'm going to decide how wide I want that to be. Now, if I just want to do just a border stamp, as in rubber stamp, clear stamp, whatever, foam stamp is what we're doing. I'm going to say if I'm just doing a border, I might want a really thin one. If I want to do it like a border punch, where I want it to have some dimension to it, I'm going to make it a little bit wider. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something with this edge to make it like a border punch. We're going to cut it, and then we're going to stamp, and then we're going to cut around it, and it's going to be the same as if we had a border punch, plus it has a matching stamp, which is also really cool. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll just decide, how do we want to do this border? Now let's just do it as, let's just kind of do a little swooshy swoosh. Just kind of around and around. It does not have to be exact. Okay, but I'm going to give you one hint right here. I'm going to stop. Here is where I started with my border. Now what I want to do is, because I want to be able to go all the way along a page, I want the start of this to match up with the finish over here so that I can continue to stamp no matter how long I need it to be. So what I'm going to do before I finish this and wind up maybe in the wrong spot, I'm going to kind of fold this up, not really fold it in half, but I'm going to just do it this way. And I'm going to line them up like this. And I'm going to say, see, now here's where I started. There's the little bit of line, the start of my thing. I'm going to line this up, make sure that they line up at the top. And then I'm going to say right. And the thing is that because I'm going on a downward angle, I don't want my next one to start here where I'm kind of showing you. I want it to start exactly right there. So I really need to line those up exactly, now that you know where we're at. And I'm going to put a mark right there. And now I know that that is basically, and they're not going to be totally perfect, but now if I come up to here, when I end this, these two will pretty much line up when we're done. So I'm going to go, let's see if I go down. There we go. Okay, so now this is bigger on this end. It's okay. We'll see how it looks. If we don't like it, we make another one because they're so simple to make. The other thing is, because we lined it up, this short one at the top, these two sides are also, when we cut this off, they're going to also match up as a border. So in order to make it a little bit better, let's go ahead and let's do one more. Okay, now what you also could do, no, I really wouldn't want to draw a line there to get my points at the same time, because that line could put a dent in your stamp and then you're going to see that line all the way across. So we're going to cut this and we're going to start over. I've lost my regular scissors. But I'm still going to do this one. I'm going to try it, but just so that we have one that's maybe just a little bit better right from the start, so you can see what I'm talking about, I'm going to set that one aside. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to put a mark, make sure that they're lined up in that corner, and I'm going to start it right there. So when this one starts, the other one is going to end in the same spot. So I'm going to go like that. My little mark here and go like that. Now I know where my lines need to go to line up. And then I'm going to make sure, here, I'm just going to, just so that I don't have to do measurements, I'm going to put this back together again. Put another mark right here. And that's where I'm going to run my ruler across. Then I don't have to measure down to make sure they're the same, because you're going to want them to be the same. And I'm making this look harder than it really is. It isn't. Okay, so we have a straight line. So we know that the distance from here to here and from here to here is the same, which actually isn't going to matter because really our distance has to be from here to our mark. Okay, now we're going to do something with this mark. And I'm just kind of going around and around, or up and down. And it has to end here. So that's where it's going to end. Okay, now we're just going to, I find it easier to decorate. I know that I'm going to cut across this line, but I'm going to decorate this before I cut it because it's easier than trying to hold on to something really small, especially when you're trying to press hard. Now this I don't need to press hard on. I'm just kind of getting it back in there for myself. Okay, so we decide what we want to do. Maybe we put a circle under each one of our little bumps. And of course, the more time that you have, the more detailed you can make them. And when you're doing this on your own, this black ink can transfer a little bit for a while onto your pages. And so if you don't like that to happen, now I want the black ink so you can see it. But whenever you have a pen that runs out of ink, put a mark on it, put a piece of tape around it or something that says embossing pen. And then you use that to emboss things that you don't want to get marks on, because the tip of a pen works really well to do embossing, which embossing is just basically putting a dent in something. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then let's just do a little line going this way, and then maybe we'll turn it into an X. We'll come back the other way. And remember, we want a repeated pattern. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look here. The X comes up above this and then goes down. So we're going to go like that. And then we're going to go down here and up here like that. Okay, so we've got this. That's only kind of a part of an X. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back to this side, line up our marks, and look at where our X is from right this point right here is where our X is going down. So from that point, we are going to make our X come down just a little bit. This is going to be the other half of our X. And then line up our lines, and the top of our X is coming out right here, and so that's going to be the top of our X. Now they don't touch here because our cross part is over here, and that's why those bits are there, but hopefully when we stamp it, those will line up. And then let's really give these a press. And then when you stamp them, if you find that something is showing up, you know, that was supposed to be pressed down, but it wasn't pressed down hard enough, you can always go back and adjust that and just, you know, press it down a little bit more. this. And over here. Now the top and the bottom lines are getting cut. You don't need to worry about those at all. Let's maybe just put a little dot in here. We want to have a little bit of detail when we go to stamp it. We don't want it to be super solid, but then again, that's totally up to whatever you're thinking you want to happen. If you want it to be very plain, then you just make it very plain. Excuse me. Okay, we'll call that good and we'll see what it looks like. Now remember, we also could do something with this top one here, because that is going to, I'm going to go like this. We'll just make it a stripe. We're going to cut this off and it's going to be a piece that we can use for a border also. And now we know that the ends, both ends of this are going to be the same size because we've already done measuring for this one. And that's what's left over on the flat side. So we know they'll line up, and because I'm just doing straight lines like this, I don't have to worry about whether they match up like the X does. I just have to do the lines all the way across. And I should have done them wider. It would have taken less time. But, you know, this here, let's just start down here. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that I'm thinking. All right, so let's see how long this is. Okay, that is 2 1/4 inches. And that is a 1/2 inch, so that's 2 3/4. What do I have in the middle here? I have 3 1/4 left. If I do another quarter, which is going to take me right to about here. Okay, so I'm just going to do 2 more here. Okay, this might not make any sense. Hopefully it does. So what I've done is, when I continuously stamp this, the total length of all of these lines together, because they're going to be repeated, is going to be 3 inches, and then there's 3 inches right here. So we'll just put some dots on this 3 inches. Then as you go down your border, you're going to have 3 inches of stripe, 3 inches of dots, 3 inches of stripe, 3 inches of dots, except like at the very beginning and the very end, depending on how long your paper is. But I do like it when it starts a little bit like it does. It's not just all lines then all dots. I like I don't know how to say that. I like it to start with just a little bit, so it looks as though it started on another piece of paper and it's continuing. Okay, so there we go. We've got our little dots pressed in. Now we're going to cut it and we'll see what it looks like. There we go. And I want to try and make sure that I really do start this and stop it where I drew my lines so that both ends are even. If you get off a little bit in the middle, it's not going to make any difference. The only thing that has to line up is just those 2 ends. And they don't have to. If you're doing a short page, if you have a larger piece of fun foam, you can make a larger border stamp. But because this was the size I had, I'm going to make it work. Plus, they're easier to store than a stamp that's 8 1/2 inches long. So there we go. Now this is one border and this is another. And let's grab some paper. Let's see. I have some here. And we'll see what it's going to look like. And this is as easy as it is. It's so simple. I'm going to run down this side and should I do it in purple or blue? Green? Not green, but purple. Let's try the blue. Well, that was silly to dump them all on in my way. All right, so we'll start with our first one that has our matchy-match ends. And while I'm doing that, set it down. Do it where I can hold on to it. I find this the easiest way when you have a small stamp pad to ink your pads, and actually, I really find this the easiest way to ink up your stamps, even if you have a large ink pad. Then I can see that I've got it everywhere. And it's just wanting to stick. At least we know we've got a nice juicy pad. Okay, let's see what this looks like. So I'm not lining up the straight edge, but you can if you want to. That's a whole nother look. But we are going to make it like we had an edge punch. So I'm just going to line this up on my paper and give it a press. And you don't have to press hard. You don't want to squish your the dents that you just made. You just want to make sure that you give that ink time to soak into your paper. So there we go. And this is what we've got so far. Now what we're going to do is ink it up again and see if it lines up how I was hoping. And it should, because I have done it before, but we'll just have to see. That should be all right. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my little X there, and I am going to look at my paper because I do want to try and make sure that I line that up about right. It's kind of hard to do it under the camera. Let's see here. All right, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, because it's supposed to be lined up, I'm going to just line this up, top and bottom. That's what we did, right? So hopefully it should line up. And there we go. There it is, right there. I didn't get them quite exactly next to each other. There's a little bit of a line between, but I'd say that's pretty darn good. And unless you're really looking for it, you're not going to see it. So now we have this on here, and now we have a pretty border, but we wanted more like a border punch because we wanted some dimension on the edge of our page. That's simple enough. And because we made our stamp, this gives us something to follow along. And now we have a matching border punch. Not really, we're cutting it by hand, but it's doing the same thing. And border stamp so that they match, and our stamp fits right into where our punch punched, which is actually our scissors. And I do have some stamps where I have stamps and punches that match. Sometimes they're really hard to line up. Sometimes I find it easier anyways just to stamp something and then cut it out by hand, because then I don't get it off and have to start all over again. Because sometimes when I try and punch something I've stamped, I kind of get it lined up, and then as I start to punch, it moves. And there we go. Now we have a border. on our page. And we can make that as intricate as you want to. This was a faster, simpler way to show you. And so let's try. I'm gonna keep this because I like the way it looks. So we're gonna look at the other one on another piece of paper. We'll grab this piece of blue and we'll try the other half. And look at how quick it was to make 2 different border stamps that you can use in your journals. And like I said, you can make them as intricate as you want to. I really do like sometimes I like to sit in the evening with these stamps and just kind of doodle on them and see what they look like. It's just kind of fun to do. And it's something you can do while you're just sitting. Okay, so again, now we could put this so that the straight side, let's do that. We're going to put the straight side up this time. We're just going to line that up with the corner. Just like that, except I think I moved it. Give it a chance to soak in. Okay, so this is what we have with that. And now, let's do that again. Couldn't find my ink. I'm really good at laying things down and not remembering where I laid them. Well, it's a little crooked on the end. And I usually put my stamps on a piece of cardboard so that they're more solid that way. I'm going to go ahead and, because I didn't bring it up to the edge, I'm just going to trim it straight. Trim out the extra blue up there, because to me that was a little distracting. And there we go. So now we have this, and it's a repeat pattern. Some stripes, 3 inches of dots, 3 inches of stripes, 3 inches of dots, and then a little bit more stripes on the other end. And that could continue no matter how long your piece of paper was. Now I did notice that here, and it's like that, I got it a little bit, let's see. This one was lined up there, so it's this part right here. I didn't leave quite a big enough gap between my lines. Or do I have too big of a gap? Anyways, I didn't press hard enough, I'm guessing, because the gaps look definitely wide enough. But anyways, so you just go in, and if you don't like something, you just kind of adjust on it. Or if you really like it, but you kind of messed up because you were in a hurry, like I was, but you love the pattern, then you just go back in, because yeah, this is the same in both of these spots, and I wish that that was thicker. There's no way to make your foam thicker. Once you've pressed it down, you've pressed it down. So if I really like it and that bothers me, I can just go ahead and make another one like it, and just be careful. These two are just too close together. They're just not getting enough ink on them. Or I wasn't pressing hard enough in that spot, and therefore it just wasn't. See? It is better if I would have made sure that I pressed. Let me show you that. There. So next time I will just have to remember, if I don't want that little thin line there, to press a little harder. The other thing you can do is, I am going to just try and adjust that a little bit by just going like that. And take this end. Don't really have enough ink on here, but there. Alrighty, so there we go. We have border stamps. We have border punches, which will give us shapes. instead of just straight edged pages. And like I said, you can do them. I have this one that I did very, lots of loops on. Let's put this up here. And what did I do with the other one? I'll put this one here. And then I did this one. And so here it is as a border stamp. And here it is as here it is a border stamp, and here it is as a border punch. So you can use them either way. And they work really well. And then I have this one. And this is just kind of like a Southwest pattern. This is just a plain old straight edge stamp. It's not going to be a border stamp because it's straight, but it still borders your page and makes it look very interesting very quickly. And then finally I have this one, which is actually, I put the two together. It's a little wider on one side than the other, and so I just did it like that. I thought it looked like an alligator's tail or a dragon's tail. Really, a dragon's tail is what I was thinking. And then here it is as a border. And see how, that's very detailed on the edge of your paper. So there you go. If you had a punch, you could punch it out like that, or you can just cut it. And that is this one. And then after I did this up here, I really liked the way it looked like scales. I didn't do it to look like scales. That's just what it looked like when I did it, and I really liked it. So then I cut around the bottom so that I didn't have a solid line across the bottom. And so that way it just has just the circles because I didn't leave that extra. I just went right around those bottom circles. So then we have that one. So I think that these all turned out great. I really like them. I like the way that this works. And, you can come up with so many different ideas. And for the price of Fun Foam, all of these stamps right here did not even use up one full piece of Fun Foam, because these 3 stamps had more than enough to make those 2 and probably at least one more left over when I was done. And then here is my stamp off paper. I just stamped off after, because your Fun Foam holds a lot of ink, so it gives you a really nice stamp off pattern. I really like the way that looks up there with the dragon scales. So there we go. That is today's project. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope if you were thinking, I want pretty edges on my paper, that this will give you an idea of how you can do it and make a punch that matches, so that when you cut those edges, it's already got interest and definition, decoration right there for you. You don't have to cut some pretty edges and then figure out how you're going to color them or decorate them, or are you going to just leave them plain. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.